What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from different comic book companies. This time, we are going to jump back over to DC Comics and we are going to do another Kngiht Terror book, or Kngiht Terror book, sorry. And this time, we are going to cover the one that comes from the Kngiht Terror Ravager miniseries. If you are new to these miniseries tie-ins in the Kngiht Terror event, when it comes to Kngiht Terror Event, it's about the idea of a character known as Insomnia who comes to Earth looking for the Nightmare Stone. But for him to get the stone, he has to find the stone in someone's dreams. So the entire world has been put to sleep and everyone is having a nightmare left and right so that he will be able to actually find the stone. So every tie-in series is just a two-part series about a particular character and what their nightmare is all about. So this one is all about Ravager. Her real name is Rose Wilson, and she is the daughter of Deathstroke. I found it interesting because she doesn't have a series at all that is currently going on at the moment, if I remember correctly, but she got a miniseries, and let's see what her nightmare is all about. And so when it comes to the opening pages of this book, we actually do pick up with some very interesting looking creatures right now killing people off in this house. Now, at first, we have no idea who these people are. Matter of fact, we are going to learn about these people down the road in this book. But for right now, we have no idea. Now, we do know one thing though. When it comes to these creatures, they're looking for Rose. And matter of fact, every single time they kill someone in this house, they tell her, hey, listen, Rose, we know you're here. We can smell you. Just go ahead and come out and everything will be over. Now, on top of that, they do tell us that apparently Rose in this nightmare has some kind of deal with her father. Now remember, when it comes to her father is Deathstroke. And the question is right now, is Deathstroke the main bad guy in her own nightmare? Which honestly would make sense because their family is really messed up. But either way right now, you do have these creatures continue to kill people left and right to look for her. Now, when they do kill off this lady and they do spill her blood, some kind of creature does come out of her blood, which honestly is very disgusting. Either way, when that creature comes out, it does call itself Daddy. It says, hey, Rose, Daddy is here, come here. Now, we could technically say this is Deathstroke, just in a different version in the eyes of Rose. When she sees her father is completely evil and some kind of monster to her own eyes. Now, with that being said, though, when we do see Rose, Rose is hiding, but Rose is scared. And usually that's not Rose. When it comes to Ravager, Rose Wilson, she is a fighter. Now, at first she may be scared, but once she gets a pep talk, she's in it and she will fight to the end. But right now we have a Rose that's just completely scared. And when these creatures find her, they grab her and say, hey, like I said earlier, you have a deal with Daddy and it's time for you to accomplish that deal. And this is where things get a tad bit more interesting, because then we jump somewhere else in this nightmare where we actually see someone coming out of the ground, and that someone is Rose Wilson. So right now we have two different Rose Wilsons right now at the moment. Either way, when it comes to this one, she does rise up from the ground and she hears someone screaming. And so of course she knows she has to save that person. Now, when it comes to this Rose Wilson, Ravager, she has no idea what in the world is going on. She has no idea that right now she's stuck in a nightmare. Either way, she does run to the screams that she does hear, which is the other Rose, the more scared one, who's right now being held by those creatures we saw earlier. Now, when it comes to these creatures, they do tell, I call the fake Rose, something very important, or they're about to. But they do tell her, we all have a role to play, and your role is about to come up very soon. You must do But before we're able to learn what her role actually is, that is the moment you have the real Ravager appear to say the scare one. And she does kill off the creatures, not really kill them off, she more of cut their arms off for the time being so that her and her fake self is able to actually get away, which they do. But now it's time for the conversation, because now you have two Rose Wilsons together in this nightmare realm. Now, when it comes to this conversation, it's one heck of a conversation. And the reason why, because you do have the two Rose Wilsons actually sit down. Now, when it comes to the one in the Ravager outfit, I'll call her Ravager. The one who's not in a Ravager outfit, I'll just call her Rose. Now, this is the moment you have Rose actually give us a tad bit of information here, because what she says is that when it comes to those creatures, there are three of them. The main one is called the Murder Man, which honestly is the most basic name you can give someone. But then the other two are known as Rager and Vexer, and they work for the Murder Man, and they're known as the Slaughter Squadron. But when it comes to those three creatures, they're looking for Rose. And the reason why, because when it comes to the Murder Man, he hates to work for Insomnia, and he needs the blood of Rose to help him accomplish his goal. Now, before we are able to actually dive into what his goal actually is, we need to talk about something else. The people who died. And we kind of find out those people who died were the foster parents to Rose. Now, as soon as Ravager hears that, she begins to freak out. And the reason why, because she knows that right now she's talking to herself, a younger, scarier version of herself. But the problem is, though, when it comes to her past, she was not adopted. She was not in no foster home with a bunch of people. She was raised in a brothel. And so for her to realize that her younger self is talking about her mom, her dad, and her brother and sisters, she's kind of like, no, I have one dad. That is Deathstroke. I was raised in a brothel. This whole nightmare right now is not right. My past is confusing right now. What is actually happening at the moment here? But we kind of find out from Rose that when it comes to the Murder Man, he wants to go to the waking world, of course, the real world. But the only way he can do that is by crossing a bridge. But he cannot cross that bridge by himself. But before she's able to actually continue on, that is the moment they hear more screams happening in the town. And the screams they heard was more people being killed off by the Slaughter Squadron. Now, of course, they killed off a guy who may have known where Rose was at. But unfortunately for the guy, he did not know. But unfortunately, it didn't matter. They still wanted to kill him off. And so they did kill him off, and they killed off his entire family that he was hiding in the basement. Now, when it comes to these creatures, they realize that it's almost time. Something big is about to happen. And so with that being said right now, you have these creatures begin to walk around the city to look for more people to kill. But of course, something big is about to happen right now in this book. And so getting back over to Ravager and Rose, this is the moment where we actually learn more a tad bit about the Murder Man. Now, when it comes to the Murder Man, apparently we learned that he has the ability to travel through spilled blood, meaning that if someone gets shot, stabbed, or cut, whatever, and their blood spilled on the ground, he can travel through that blood to that location, or really anywhere across the nightmare realm. Now, we did learn earlier that when it comes to the Murder Man, he hates to work for Insomnia. And so what he's trying to do right now is get to the world of the living, the waking world, the real world. But the only way to get there is to cross the bridge. And when it comes to the bridge is Rose. And the reason why it is Rose, because she has 1 foot in the nightmare realm, but 1 foot to the waking world as well. She's connected to both realms. And so if her blood is spilled, it gives the Murder Man a way to actually reach the real world. Now, this is where things get a tad bit interesting, well, even more interesting, because when you do focus on the pages, the artwork and everything, you realize that when it comes to Rose, she begins to act a tad bit different, because they're hiding out right now in this house. in the kitchen of this house, and she's walking around looking for something to use on Ravager. But at the same time, the cut she got earlier, it begins to change. It gets bigger and bigger, and not the cut, but really cracks around the cut to show us that technically Rose is not good at all, which I'm correct, because that is the moment she comes around and stabs Ravager right in the knee. And the reason why? To spill her blood, because Rose is not the bridge to the waking world. The actual bridge is Ravager, which makes more sense. And where her blood being spilled, now the murder man has a way to actually reach the waking world. But that is the moment where we actually do jump back over to the waking world. Now, when we do, we actually do pick up with a character known as Peacekeeper. Now, this is Peacekeeper right now finding Ravager. Now, when he does find Ravager, he wants to wake her up, but then he's told not to by Winter. Now, when it comes to Winter, Peacekeeper, and Ravager, they're all part of a team called Stormwatch. And when it comes to Stormwatch, usually they deal with threats that come from outer space that is trying to attack the Earth. But sometimes they have to go down to the Earth to deal with other kinds of problems. But right now we're coming to find out that most of the team had disappeared. And unfortunately, when it comes to Peacekeeper and Winter, they could not find the rest of the team. And so far, they only found Ravager. Now, Peacekeeper wants to wake her up, but Winter said no. And the reason why? Because he is afraid what would happen to her if he does wake her up. Something really bad could technically happen to her. And so with that being said, we're left with a cliffhanger to figure out what's going to happen next. Will the murder man be able to actually reach the Earth and begin to do harm to the Earth, or will Rose be able to handle the murder man before he's able to actually leave the nightmare realm? Well, we'll find out in the next video. So with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.